colors that, and it's very hard to get a hold of now because the people that were making it said they didn't want to do that anymore. So, but I have a pretty good backstock that'll last me a while. And I'm experimenting with other materials and whatever. And
This looks like a bouquet up there. Is that supposed to be
that's
like
that's my little experiment jar
That's fun.
that I take if I'm going to to a school
Yeah.
and do a like a little demonstration or talk about my work. So I'll take that along because people like to touch,
That's so fun though. It's a metal bouquet.
Yeah, did that.
Metal grass.
Yeah, that was a killer. It's like,
Those long thin strips, yeah.
I do, like 300 of them in a little box, so it's very time consuming. And then,
So this is a small work area. And it's crowded. Where do you do most of the actual work?
right now it just looks like a bomb went off because
It
it's
does.
a mess, but I do clear the deck and
This
I
is your
work,
space?
this is where I work, on these two tables right here, or my desks over there, depends on what I'm doing. Right now, and so there's some of the earlier rain pieces that I did that led to the one at the library. And I've used them in other forms, so like this is a sketch model behind you right here. This is another where I'm doing like these bird forms. So whether it's, birds or rain or grass or all those things end up being, I would say, just more variations on a theme.
Yeah.
And,
One thing leads to the next.
right.
It
Well,
evolves.
the whole grass thing started when I found I had some scraps of metal on the floor, and I said, wow, that looks just like grass. So I had this idea of making an extreme mobile, like what's the lightest, thinnest possible mobile I can make. And so I ended up making this little mobile out of these little ultra thin strips of grass and sold just like that. It's
People
like-
love that sort
It's
of
like,
thing.
so.
They gravitate
Yeah,
towards
well,
it.
and part of the thing with the metals too is a memory of color. It's like, the grass is like some of that stuff. It's like the color of grass on a summer morning with dew on it, So it's like those are the kind of memories I'm interested in. And if it evokes a similar memory for somebody else, great. Otherwise, or it triggers some other thing. It's like so.
Right. It's
yeah.
whimsy too. And
Yeah.
also mobiles are above you. So there's a kind of uplift to the art too, just like you look
Yeah.
up and you look at things differently.
Most of the people walk around with our head toward the ground,
Yeah.
but so depending on the setting, well, size and scale matters a lot. So that's what 98% of my work is commissions. And so it has to be made, it's made for a specific place. Now, smaller pieces I do make and sell, they'll stick around for a while, something like that. But
So the fractal rain piece in the library is obviously a very big piece,
Yeah.
and that was a commission piece, I assume.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how long did it take you to assemble all of that? Because it's huge.
well, it took about 9 months to construct, and it took a crew of 4 about 2 weeks to install. So, yeah.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun though. I mean, the project, it took longer than I thought because they had construction delays. And when we got there, it's like, well, it was actually, I had to install it while the building was still under construction. It was dried in, but it was very dusty, so we had to make special precautions so that the dust wouldn't affect the artwork while they were finishing. They said, oh, there's no dust, we sweep every day. Yeah, you create dust every day. So
When you're sweeping, it's flying through the air, yeah.
yeah, so it was a bit of a hassle for that. So the scheduling was fine. Wonderful client. The library system has made a huge commitment to public art. Have you seen about that?
I have.
Yes. And
Yeah,
so,
I was impressed when I went in the library, just the beauty of the whole space and the.
well, and there's art throughout that building, but they're rebuilding like 16 different libraries now. Some are just being renovated, some they're building new, but they're putting public art in all of them. So the library's made a really big commitment.
No, it's very important.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that struck me, and I didn't realize, was how many empty buildings there are in Dayton. I wasn't aware of that. So we did, Curtis has educated me. I read some articles, and then I asked, can I go to the Santa Clara neighborhood? I want to see.
Oh, right,
So you go, and more than half the houses are empty.
right.
So it's sort of a fascinating irony to me that there's a city where things are kind of decaying and kind of returning into the earth, all these buildings, and yet there's all this art being created too. What's the connection between those two things? Is it part of the same process in some way?
I think it's part of just the evolution of a city. You know, the Midwest it's called the Rust Belt for a reason. You know, we've had some major industries that have gone away, particularly the automobile industry has deteriorated quite a bit, and we're a big tool and die city that relied on that. So we're at a stage now where we're reinventing quite a bit, and that's positive, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel really positive about the city and its forward direction right now. Not everybody has always felt that way, and we still have some distance to cover with some people. But I'm proud to say I'm from Dayton, so.
And you're an architect, and you work for the city government as well, and you're an artist. So how does that give you a unique perspective on Dayton as a creative city?
Well, I've run in a lot of different circles, you know, so obviously I understand the design community quite a bit, and they know me for that. But most people have a tendency to know me for, I would say my public persona is more known as an artist than as an architect, but that's okay. So.
Well, I look and I see all the treasures of these houses and the buildings, some incredible architecture. There was a lot of attention to quality. There's hardwood floors, there's beautiful architectural features. And I'm really hopeful that people in their rush to renew, you don't just throw away all the best of what has been created.
I don't think there's much. I mean, occasionally we see good buildings that are threatened.
Yeah.
But in terms of historic architecture, the good thing about our city is that, like some Midwestern cities that were ignored for so long, nobody had a chance to screw it up, you know. So I think of cities like Asheville, North Carolina, or you know, some of the stuff that Detroit's going through now. You know, it's like, I mean, that's a whole different kind of problem than
like the urban renewal stuff, where they come in and flatten the whole neighborhood and then put something ugly up.
Right, and so I think we're lucky in that way that we haven't suffered quite so much that way.
San Francisco had a little bit of that happen in the 60s. They took out the whole Western Addition, which was all beautiful Victorians. They tore everything down and put up housing projects that are just no character, nothing aesthetic.
And bad public policy on top of it. So
so you guys were spared that in a way because of
So I think we're good that way.
I'm seeing just flourishing art everywhere. I'm really astonished by how many artists I've met. Is the artist community close?
Absolutely. Well, I think what's interesting about Dayton and our art community, from what I witnessed, when I had a gallery downtown, I used to keep track of all the publications, you know, newspapers mostly. The internet was still fairly young. We didn't have a lot of social media. This is where we relied a lot on postcards for promoting art. But also there would be like the city paper or the Dayton Daily News or a handful of newspapers, and they would always have a listing of what was going on. I use that as kind of a litmus test to like, how strong is our art community? Well, it's gone far beyond that now. It used to be, it's like, well, you know, you would see a newspaper listing, there might be a tiny show here or there. And I think what's happened now is that it's gotten a lot bigger. I think part of it is how we look at ourselves. Organizations like the Contemporary, the Dayton Society of Artists, which used to be called the Society for Painters and Sculptors, whatever, and they had some old school thinking about things. Well, all of those things have really come around and been much stronger. Obviously the Art Institute has made a big cultural shift in the last number of years. We have things like the Rosewood Art Center that are, you know, has a big community outreach. So all of these art organizations really do collaborate quite a bit. And so one of the things what I've sensed sometimes is that in a city the size of Dayton, is that we're not so big that we can afford to ignore each other. And we have to be supportive of each other. And so what I find is that because of these arts organizations and social media and all those other things, is that we are a lot more supportive than you would see in a larger city. That's what I've experienced, because I've been to larger cities and it's like, well, if you're not from around here, and you know, there can be some infighting and things like that. I just don't see that around here.
Yeah, and also you can afford, if it's a bigger city, I'm a visual artist, hey filmmakers, I'm not interested.
Exactly.
That kind of thing, or dancers, I'm not interested.
Right.
But there has to be more overlap and collaboration in a smaller
Oh, absolutely.
place.
Oh, sure. And I think, you'll see photographers like Andy Snow that's been a key part of, besides being an artist himself, he's been a big part of the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, DCDC, and so, or the ballet. So he's very involved in those arts because of his work. He's a commercial photographer, but he's also a fine artist in his own right as a photographer, but he's also involved with all those organizations. So I think it's one of those things where you bite off as much as you can chew, And,
it's
so,
an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yes, it is. And so, like with Ron and I, it's like, while we're both avid readers, Ron is a huge opera fan, and he's got a huge poetry collection. And so that's the kind of stuff, whenever you have, I think, these overlapping interests, it's not just a one-dimensional thing. So to me, it's just normal, but I can see where it would be different in other places, because I've seen it that way.
Yeah.
So
Your lives are art. Your lives are a work of art. They're
well, that's
infused
been
with art.
said. Yeah. My
It's like
wife
saying-
likes to think I'm a bit absent-minded on occasion, which I confess I am, because of that. Even though the studio looks like a bomb went off in it, it's probably an accurate representation of the inside of my head.
Well, I like it in there. I came into this space, I saw the pile of Walt Whitman and the other books over there, and,
Right,
and then I saw the paintings
Whitman just
and the
had his
sculpture.
200th anniversary.
Leaves of Grass,
Leaves
yeah.
of Grass, right.
Yeah, which I think is one of the most modern sounding poems still. It just
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it's as old as it is. It's
Right.
it's like very contemporary.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, Terry.
Oh, thank you.
I say that so Curtis knows to stop shooting.